A young-looking girl, dressed in slightly worn clothes with a weary expression, sat alone on the pavement outside an upscale restaurant in Beverly Hills. Her simple sign made her appear to many as just another homeless person. Passers-by avoided eye contact, quickening their pace. When Ryan Gosling exited the restaurant, he noticed her. Something about the girl made him pause. He didn't yet know that this girl was concealing a secret, and the reason she desperately needed funds would leave him utterly astonished. Little did he know that this evening would reshape not only her life, but his own as well. Before we continue this narrative, let us know your location. If you enjoy stories of this nature, subscribe to the channel, as we have another special story for you tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. The night in Beverly Hills resembled a vibrant portrait, with dazzling lights reflecting off the dry pavement. Wilshire Boulevard, lined with chic eateries and brightly lit boutiques, resonated with subdued laughter and hushed conversations from within the establishments. One of these locales, renowned as a favored haunt for celebrities and the local elite, was particularly lively that evening. Ryan Gosling emerged from the restaurant, his composed demeanor contrasting with the bustling atmosphere. He seemed preoccupied, perhaps contemplating the engaging discussion he had just shared with friends over a meal. However, something caused him to stop abruptly. On the sidewalk ahead, almost invisible to the hurried eyes of those passing by, was a young girl. She couldn't have been older than 12 or 13, seated on a slightly frayed blanket. Her plain, slightly tattered attire reflected her challenging circumstances. In her hands, she held a small, handwritten sign. Her expression fluctuated between hope and resignation as she observed people walking by without so much as a glance. Ryan hesitated for a moment. He noticed how others disregarded her, looking away as if she were invisible. The scene touched him deeply, evoking memories of struggles he himself had overcome. Driven by an innate empathy, he decided to approach her. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, crouching down to her level. The girl looked up, visibly surprised by his approach. Her voice was hesitant, almost inaudible. I just need help. It's urgent." Ryan studied her face. There was something about her he couldn't quite define, a mixture of fear and resolve. He took a deep breath before asking again, "What do you need the money for?" The girl looked away, staring at the ground as if searching for an explanation. Her prolonged silence carried a weight she wasn't prepared to share. She avoided answering, leaving Ryan even more intrigued. Ryan noticed the girl's hesitation, realizing she was struggling to articulate her needs. He didn't want to pressure her, but he also couldn't bring himself to leave her there alone. The street was busy, yet that small space felt strangely isolated from the rest of the world. "If it's that urgent, perhaps I can help," he offered, his voice calm and reassuring. The girl briefly lifted her gaze but quickly lowered it again, staring at the ground. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "It's not for me, but I don't know if I should say." Ryan sensed the situation was more complex than it seemed. He noticed her trembling, perhaps from the cool evening air, perhaps from nervousness. Feeling an inexplicable sense of responsibility, he decided to try a different tactic. "Have you had dinner yet?" he asked. She hesitated, then shook her head. "Then, come on, let's get something to eat," he said, gesturing towards a small bistro across the street. "It's too chilly to stay out here." The girl looked around as if assessing whether it was safe to go with him. After a few moments of uncertainty, she nodded and stood up slowly, picking up her sign and a small backpack that lay beside her. At the bistro, Ryan chose a quiet table in the corner. A waiter brought menus and he ordered 2 warm beverages and sandwiches. While they waited, he made another attempt to start a conversation. "Did you ask anyone else for help today?" She sighed, fidgeting with the strap of her backpack. "Nobody wanted to help. They all pretend they don't see me," she said, her voice a blend of frustration and sadness. Ryan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The silence between them was broken by the waiter bringing their orders. The girl wrapped her hands around the warm cup as if absorbing the much-needed warmth. After a few minutes, Ryan tried again. "Now that you're more comfortable, can you tell me why you need help?" The girl hesitated but finally answered, "I just need to save someone before it's too late." Her cryptic response left Ryan even more intrigued as he tried to decipher the true meaning behind her words. The bistro was quiet, save for the occasional clinking of spoons against cups. Ryan watched the girl as she took small sips of her drink. There was something about her that stirred a mix of concern and curiosity within him. He decided to take a different approach, sharing something personal. "When I was younger, I went through some difficult times too," he began, his voice calm and reflective. "I lost my father very early, and my mother worked long hours. I often felt alone, but I learned that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to move forward." The girl stopped fiddling with the edge of her cup and looked up at him, a mix of surprise and caution in her eyes. It was clear she hadn't expected to hear something so personal. After a few moments, her lips quivered, and she finally responded in a hesitant tone. "I lost my parents too." Ryan leaned forward slightly, encouraging her to continue. He could see that this confession took a lot of effort. "In a car accident," she said, her voice trembling. I was waiting for them at school. They said they'd pick me up early that day, but they never came." Her words hung heavily in the air, and Ryan felt the weight of them deeply. He knew this was a pain no child should have to endure. "I'm so sorry," he said sincerely. That must have been devastating. The girl took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure, but tears began to stream down her face. She covered her eyes with her hands, her body trembling slightly with sobs. Ryan waited patiently, giving her the space she needed. He reached out his hand gently, not to intrude, but to let her know she wasn't alone. "My mom was amazing," she said between sobs. "She could turn anything into something special, and my dad, he made you feel like the most important person in the world. I miss them so much." Ryan squeezed her hand lightly, offering a calm presence. "They sound like incredible people," he said softly, "and I'm sure they'd be so proud of the strength you have." The girl smiled faintly through her tears, but quickly frowned again. "I live with my uncle now," she admitted. "He doesn't like me much. I think he only took me in because he felt he had to. It's not like before. It's not the same." She paused, clenching her fists. "The only thing I have left of them is what they taught me and the kitten they gave me before they died. He's the only thing that still connects me to them. I made a promise to myself that I'd take care of him no matter what." "Where is he now?" Ryan asked gently. The girl looked away, wiping her tears with the napkin he'd handed her. I can't say. Not yet." The girl's revelation about the kitten Ryan was drawn further into her narrative, yet her reticence to divulge more details created an aura of mystery surrounding the events of that evening. The night in Los Angeles deepened, and the cafe's patrons began to dwindle. Ryan observed the girl, who appeared more composed now, albeit still hesitant. He understood he couldn't coerce her trust, but he was resolved to assist. "You know," he remarked with a kind smile, "caring for a loved one, whether a person or an animal, often provides us with strength. It seems this kitten holds a special place in your heart." The girl nodded slowly, clutching the strap of her backpack tightly. She seemed to be contemplating whether to confide further. After a prolonged silence, she finally began to speak. "His name is Toby," she said with a soft, melancholic smile. "He was just a tiny kitten when my parents gave him to me. Mom said he was our little miracle because he appeared at our doorstep on a brisk evening, on my birthday." She paused, as if reliving the memory. Her eyes shimmered with a blend of sorrow and fondness. "After they passed away, he became my whole world. He was there during my tears, during my sleepless nights. He's the only thing that still makes me feel close to my parents." Ryan nodded, comprehending the depth of their connection. "And what happened to Toby?" he inquired gently. The girl looked away, the pain resurfacing on her face. "My uncle said he couldn't keep him. He said it was already difficult enough having me in the house, and a cat was just another burden." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He wanted to get rid of him." Ryan frowned, his protective instincts flaring. "Is that why you left?" She nodded, tears welling up once more. I knew he didn't understand. Toby is all I have left of my parents. I couldn't let that happen. Ryan took a deep breath, absorbing her words. It was evident this girl was shouldering an emotional weight far too heavy for any child. "And where is Toby now?" he asked, maintaining a calm tone. She hesitated before replying, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I hid him somewhere safe, but—" She paused, swallowing hard. "He's unwell, and I don't know what to do. He stopped eating and can barely move. That's why I need funds. He needs assistance, but I don't know how to afford it." She looked up at Ryan, her expression shifting from sorrow to a determined resolve. "My mom was a veterinarian," she continued, her voice growing steadier. "She always told me to look for signs because animals can't communicate like we do. Toby is thin, weak, and he's vomited a few times. I suspect he might have ingested something he shouldn't have, like a piece of plastic or thread. It's what my mom called an obstruction. I remember her mentioning it once when she treated another ill cat." Ryan was impressed by the girl's attentiveness and knowledge. It was clear she had absorbed much of her mother's teachings, despite her youth. "You seem to know quite a bit about what might be happening," Ryan said, impressed. "That's remarkable. It's insufficient," she sighed, frustrated. "I don't have the medications or the tools my mom used, and he might not make it if I don't act quickly." Ryan placed a reassuring hand over hers. "I promise we'll find Toby and help him. You don't have to go through this alone." The girl looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of despair and hope. "Would you truly do that?" she asked, almost disbelieving. Ryan smiled. "Yes, but you have to trust me. We'll do this together." The girl embraced herself as if attempting to shield herself from the anguish of her own words. "I followed what my mom taught me, but it's not enough. I don't know what else to do now." She stopped walking, gazing at the ground as if her mother were present. "If she were here, she'd know what to do. I just miss her." Ryan stopped beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's natural to miss them," he said with a gentle tone that seemed to soothe the turmoil within her. "But you're being incredibly brave, and now that we're together, we'll do everything we can to help Toby." The girl looked at him, and for a brief moment, her eyes reflected a glimmer of gratitude. "He's all I have left of my parents," she whispered, "and I can't let him down." Ryan nodded again. "And you won't. We're in this together." Reaching a nearby alleyway, the girl began rummaging behind some crates. With swift movements, she moved aside a folded blanket that concealed a small space between the walls. From there, she retrieved a small basket where Toby lay curled up. The kitten was emaciated and barely responsive, emitting a faint meow as he sensed her presence. "Toby," she whispered softly, stroking the cat's head. Ryan knelt beside her, observing the frail little creature. He immediately noticed how weak Toby appeared, barely able to react. Something needed to be done, and urgently. "He's very weak," Ryan said. "We need to get him to a vet immediately." The girl looked up at him, her eyes filled with worry. "But I don't have any money. That's why I was asking for help. I don't know how to pay for it." Ryan offered a reassuring smile. "Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. What's most important now is ensuring he receives the help he needs." Carefully, he lifted Toby in the basket, cradling the fragile little body as if it were the most precious thing in the world. The girl stayed close to his side, her anxiety palpable as they hurried to hail a taxi. At the veterinary clinic, they were greeted by a friendly receptionist. Ryan quickly explained the situation, and Toby was immediately taken to the examination room. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they waited in the lobby. The girl fidgeted nervously, her eyes fixed on the door through which Toby had disappeared. Finally, the vet emerged, his expression grave. "Toby is very weak," he began. "He requires surgery to remove the obstruction in his digestive system. It's a delicate and costly procedure, but if it's not performed, he won't survive." The girl looked at Ryan, her face etched with despair. "And now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder and, without hesitation, said, "We're going to proceed with the surgery. Don't worry about the expenses. I'll cover them." The girl took a deep breath, attempting to process Ryan's assurance. Knowing Toby had a chance reignited her hope, but fear still lingered. As they waited for the vet to prepare for the operation, she began to share more about her connection with Toby. "When my parents gave me Toby, they said he was special, like a gift that arrived at the perfect moment." She paused, running her fingers over the strap of her backpack. "He was so timid when he first appeared at our doorstep. My mom used to say animals have an instinct for finding a safe haven." Ryan listened attentively, understanding that Toby was more than just a pet to her. He represented love, family, and connection, something she was determined to protect. After some time, the vet returned. "We're ready for the surgery," he said, "but there's something you should know. Toby is very weak, which makes the procedure more risky. We'll do everything in our power to save him, but I can't make any guarantees." The girl swallowed hard, her hands gripping the edges of her chair. "You'll save him, won't you?" she asked, almost pleading. The vet nodded compassionately. "We'll do our absolute best." As Toby was taken away, Ryan placed a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. "He's in capable hands now," he said. "The most important thing is that you didn't give up on him." She looked at him, struggling to suppress tears, her eyes brimming with emotion. "I just want him to come home with me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "He's the only thing that makes me remember how wonderful it was to be with my parents." Ryan remained quiet for a moment, feeling the weight of her words. "And you're giving him that chance," he said with conviction. "You're stronger than you realize." Hours ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. The girl paced back and forth in the small lobby while Ryan watched, offering what comfort he could with his steady presence. Finally, the vet reappeared. "The surgery was successful," he announced. "We removed the object blocking Toby's digestive system. Now he needs rest and intensive care for the next 24 hours to ensure his recovery." The girl exhaled a sigh of relief, covering her face with her hands as tears of gratitude streamed down her cheeks. "Will he be all right?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We're optimistic," the vet replied, "but he'll require a lot of care." Ryan smiled, leaning down to meet the girl's eyes. "That means Toby is on the road to coming home with you." She hugged him spontaneously, her gratitude overflowing in a gesture that spoke volumes. Despite the successful surgery, Toby's recovery remained uncertain, and the coming days would be critical. Meanwhile, Ryan began to realize that helping the girl was more than just a temporary mission. It was an emotional bond he couldn't ignore. The girl could barely sleep that night. Despite the news that Toby had survived the surgery, the uncertainty surrounding his recovery kept her restless. Ryan stayed by her side, offering silent comfort, knowing his presence was the best thing he could give at that moment. The next morning, they returned to the veterinary clinic to see Toby. The atmosphere still carried a sense of tension, but there was a faint glimmer of hope in the air. The vet greeted them at the reception with an encouraging expression. "Toby is recovering well," he announced. "He's still weak, but we're already seeing signs of improvement. You can see him now, but remember he needs plenty of rest." The girl nodded quickly, eager to see her furry friend. Ryan followed her as the vet led them to the small room where Toby was resting. As they entered, she approached the cage slowly, as if afraid of disturbing him. Toby lay on a soft blanket, his eyes half open. He let out a faint meow as the girl knelt beside the cage, reaching her hand in to gently stroke his head. "Hey, buddy," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're so strong. I'm here now." Ryan watched the scene, feeling a surge of emotions. He knew this moment was more than just a simple reunion. It was a connection that transcended words. Toby was a link to everything the girl had lost, and now he represented a new chance for hope. "He's responding well to your presence," the vet commented with a smile. "Animals like Toby can sense when they're surrounded by love." The girl stayed by Toby's side for a long time, speaking to him in a soft tone. Ryan sat on a nearby chair, admiring the resilience of this young child. Despite everything she had endured, she still had the capacity to give unconditional love. When they finally left the room, the vet explained the next steps. "Toby will need ongoing care over the next few weeks," he said. "A specific diet, medication, and a calm environment. With this, he should make a full recovery." The girl looked relieved, but her expression quickly shifted to worry. "I don't know if my uncle will let Toby come back home with me." Ryan frowned, feeling the weight of this new complication. "Don't worry," he said firmly. "We'll find a solution. You're not alone." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with a mix of gratitude and trusting someone was clearly still a challenge for her, but Ryan was determined not to let her down. "We'll take care of Toby together," he assured her, "and we'll take care of you too." As the sun set, Ryan and the girl left the veterinary clinic. Toby was safe, but the future remained uncertain. The girl clutched a package of medications, her hands trembling slightly. "Do you think we can stay together?" she asked hesitantly. "My uncle, he won't allow it." Ryan stopped and met her gaze. "I promise to help you and Toby," he said calmly, "and I'll keep that promise." She bit her lip, her voice soft. "But how? I have nowhere else to go, and my uncle only lets me stay because he feels he has to." Ryan took a deep breath. "First, let's make sure Toby is safe. Then we'll find a place where you can be happy. Trust me." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "I know some people who can help," he explained afterward. "They have programs where you can learn about caring for animals just like your mom did." Her eyes lit up. "You think I could become a vet like her?" Ryan smiled. "Absolutely. You just need a chance, and we'll make that happen." The next day, they picked up Toby and moved to a temporary home arranged by the organization Ryan had contacted. The cozy house offered safety and comfort for both the girl and Toby. As she stood silently, taking in her surroundings, Toby meowed softly in her arms. "I never thought anyone would do this for me," she said quietly. "You've already done so much just by being yourself," Ryan replied, "and you're not alone anymore." For the first time in a long while, she smiled, a shy but genuine smile. The girl's days became brighter as Toby continued to recover. Their temporary home was peaceful, and Ryan stayed by her side, guiding her toward a better future. One day, Ryan found her reading a veterinary book. "Looks like someone's planning for the future," he smiled. She looked up and said, "I want to be a vet like my mom. I want to help animals like Toby." Ryan was proud of her determination but knew she needed more than just a safe place to thrive. A few days later, he received good news from the organization caring for her. They had found a family passionate about animals who wanted to foster her and take care of Toby. Ryan felt bittersweet relief. He knew it was the best decision for her. That day, they visited the new family's cozy home, complete with a large backyard for Toby to roam. The girl hesitated but eventually said, "Maybe this is where Toby and I can start over." Ryan smiled. "You can always count on me." Months later, Ryan received a letter from the girl. She shared that Toby was healthy and she was now involved in animal care activities. She wrote, "Thank you for showing me there are still good people in the world. You gave me a chance when no one else believed in me. I'll never forget that." Ryan folded the letter, deeply fulfilled. "Sometimes a small gesture can change an entire life," he wrote in his journal, "and in return, our own lives change for the better."